everyone. This is Melody. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Katie. Well, welcome to the WISPALS ILS quarterly training series. We're going to go ahead and get started since it's 10 o'clock. This session is on reports and statistics. And as Sierra users and as a part of WISPALS, we have a lot of different resources available to us to run reports and to gather statistics. So I'm hoping to touch base on all of them today and hopefully have time to demonstrate some reports in each. We do have a few that I won't be able to demonstrate simply because of their apps on mobile devices, so I can't actually show those, but I'll talk a little bit about those. So the first thing that, and I wanted to mention, please, this is really informal, so feel free to ask questions during, throughout this hour. And if we're have a little bit of time at the end, and if there is a specific report that you are wondering how to run and I didn't touch base on, let me know. And I might have time to actually demonstrate it or can answer some questions. But like I said, feel free to ask questions throughout. So the first thing that I wanted to do was just remind you all of this document here. So just really quickly, can everyone see my screen? You can also
I can
chat.
see.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Yeah, and also feel free to use the chat throughout as well. All right, so this document is the WISPALS ILS resources document. It is available in Basecamp in the WISPALS document repository. That looks like, let me just show you where that's at. If you do not have access to this, please do let me know. So it's just a WISPALS resource library. This is where any materials that we create get saved here. So any materials from the instructional services, technical services, user services, and so forth get created. They, when they're complete, they get put here. So we have a lot of different documents, how-tos, and so forth. I'm getting some feedback, so I'm just gonna mute a couple of people. If I mute you and you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself. All right. So, so I just wanted to let you know, again, let me know if for some reason you don't have access to this, please do let me know and I'll make sure you get added to that. But back to that document, the ILS resources document. So this is the most up-to-date document that we have that really has all of the ILS related resources available to it, because not everything is just right in Sierra. The first obviously listed here is Sierra. This is which everyone I'm sure has and has been playing around with for quite some time now. If you do need to do a reinstall, there's just information on how to do that. But going down a little bit, we have a couple of things listed here. Web management reports is one of them. I know most of you probably have been in one of the two versions of web management reports that we have. We actually have access to two different ones, so they're both listed here. The first one is the Web Management Reports app. And then there's also, we still have access to an older version, which is just the Web Management Reports that is browser-based. And they are also both available through Sierra, and I'll show you how to access those if you haven't before. Now, I'm going to actually use both of these today and go through a little bit of each of these, because there are some differences. The older version does require a browser that allows Java, so that can require, or it can cause a little bit of complications. However, there are a couple of reports that are available in there that are we still have access to and can run that aren't available in the Web Management Reports app. The other thing that we have access to is Decision Center. Decision Center is really a collection maintenance reporting tool, and so that is separate from Sierra as well. We'll go into a little bit of that later. And then we also have down at the bottom, we have Circa and mobile work lists. So Circa really is used predominantly for inventory, and you can use it as just with a browser, or if you have a mobile device that is connected to that can scan, you can do that as well. But that is one of the tools that you can use for inventory, and it's in real time. So if you have internet access, you can do shelf scans and so forth. You can even actually check out and check in on it. I'm not sure if anyone has played around with that at all, but you can do that. And then the last one is mobile work lists. This is the one that I really can't do a lot of demonstrating for, but you can download the app, and you can do scanning and so forth, and then it all gets saved within the app, and then you can upload it to Sierra later, and then use the copy feature within Create Lists to do stuff with the information that you just scanned. All right, so I'm going to actually jump now over into Sierra. Let's see here. I did ask before we started today if there were specific reports or statistics that members would like me to review, and I did get a few responses, which included reports for iPad requirements, reports to support inventory, reports to support weeding and general cleanup, and then a couple of one-off reports as well. So I wanted to start off with the iPads requirements, since you all have to do those. I believe for academic libraries, the library portion is due in the fall, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But the iPad requires that all academic libraries, I believe it says with expenditures greater than 0, so that's most of you, have to report collection counts of books, media, and serials, both physical and digital, circulation stats of those collections, and then library expenditures. So the first thing that I wanted to go through and run were collection counts, just to show you an example of that. This is something that I think everyone knows how to do, but we do have some new people to WISPALS, and so I just wanted to run through it just as a review. And this is one of those that can actually be done within Sierra through the Create List function and the Statistics function. A lot of reports that we run, even if we're running them, the statistics within web management reports, they can start in Create Lists. So we'll see a lot of times you'll want to just start here in Create Lists, because it helps you to narrow things down, and then you can run them through different reporting resources. So one caveat that I wanted to mention today is not all WISPALS libraries catalog the same way. I think everybody knows that. And some of the libraries include and add all of their electronic resources to Sierra, and some do not. Some use other resources like EDS and so forth. So basically, not all things are created equal, so not all reports will be exactly the same for each institution, so keep that in mind. And the other thing too is, if you do use outside products like EDS, for things like circulation and use reports, you will have to, of course, go outside to your EDS resource to get those types of statistics, or if you use a proxy server for your local information, for access, that's where you'll need to get statistics for some of those electronic resources, since we don't have a proxy server on Sierra. So, okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So that first report that is a requirement for iPads is a collection count. So the easiest way to do that is to start in Create Lists. And since we're looking, again, now this is going to depend on how you catalog. So if you just put all of your physical items in Sierra and you put your electronic resources outside of Sierra, you'll have to run different reports. But let's look at physical items first. So what we want to do is probably grab a bigger review file. I'm just going to use the biggest one down here at the bottom, even though we don't need it. We'll empty it out real quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab all of the physical items for one specific location, one library. So I'll pick on, let's do MSTC. And I want to store the record as an item. And so I'm going to change that because, again, I don't want just titles. I want physical counts. So I want to know exactly how many copies of everything I have. So I'm going to do item. And then I'm going to jump down here and I'm going to, again, do item. And all I really want to know is everything that this particular library owns. So the one field that I'm going to look at is item agency. And the reason I'm going to choose that is because for a lot of the other, like location, you have multiple location codes, and it's just easier with item agency. You just have one per institution. So it's easier just to use that as the kind of main gathering field. So I'm going to do 127, which is item agency, and it's just going to be equal to, and I'm doing MSTC, so it'll be 4. And that is all. This is going to gather all the items owned by MSTC, so I'm going to hit search. It'll take just a second. And it's complete. So now we're done here in Create List. So now what I want to do is to be able to look at all of those really quickly and to determine how many I own of, you know, each of these item types or location codes or so forth. We want to run them through statistics. So we're going to come up to function and go to statistics. And that's going to take us to the saved query search, but we want to start a new query. So what I'm going to do is click on new query. And I'm just going to name it as MSTC. This little button here will copy whatever I put in the saved query name to the result file name. And then the default is always going to be range, so range of the record numbers. But I already created a review file, so I'm going to change this to review. And then I'm going to select the review file that I just created. So now come over here, and it was all the way at the bottom. So I'm going to select that, and I do want to leave it as field statistics. You can check fastest accumulation. I never notice a difference if I check that or don't check it, but I always check it because it sounds good. And then I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to run the query. So I'm going to click, and it's going to ask me 2 different things. It's going to say, you've set this up. Do you want to save it? Or just telling me that it's not saved, which is fine because I don't want to do that. But the other thing that it's going to ask me is if I want it to accumulate in the background. And what that means, I'm going to say yes. That means it's just going to take me to the results file, and then it'll say it's in progress. So it'll take, depending upon the file size. So if you're processing like 200,000 records or something, it could possibly take a minute or 2 to run. We're only looking at like roughly 7,000 records, so it finished pretty quickly. So you want to click on that and then come up and view the query. Viewing the report will just show you what you did the report on. So it's going to show us that, viewing the query will show us the statistics, like that we selected a specific review file that we're doing field statistics and so forth. Okay, so this is taking us to the report. And over here on the left-hand side, you can expand all of these as well. These are our different options. So we can look at all of these records, these 6,276 records that we gathered, and we can look at different fields. And these will change if you're looking at item records, if you're looking at bibliographic records or acquisition records, you know, stuff, it depends, what you'll see here is depends on the type of records that you're looking at. So because we have item records here, we're looking at very item specific fields. So one thing that I want to look at is location, because this is going to give me an idea of where these items are physically located at. Okay, so this shows me different locations. Some libraries use locations very specifically, like for different reserves, but perhaps the item type is going to give you the type of information, like whether it's an audio book or if it's a reference material. So depending upon what you need for iPads, you can change these over here. So this example shows us the item type. And then over here, it has a breakdown of a couple of different things. So we see the iType, but then we see the number for each one. So for MSTC, they have 3,249 books at a totaling of $141,000 and so forth. So this price is actually coming from the item record. So keep that in mind. This might not be the total that you actually paid for it, but it's the total that is put in the item. So if the item goes to build status, that would be the price that the patron gets billed for. So this isn't really a good expenditure count. It's just the count of the worth of the item were it to need to be replaced, or would you get the amount you would charge a patron. You also then have total checkouts, total renewals, year-to-date totals, last year totals, and so forth. So this is one option. Then once you have this, if you want to, you can export it and you can select Excel, which is the best option. You can also put it in Word, or you can just print this, print a PDF. If you put it in Word, it's a little bit clunky. Excel, all of these will go right into rows and columns, and then you could sort and so forth and change. When you do hit export, it's just going to export this particular version, or this chart that you, or not chart, I'm sorry, this report that you have. If you want to do multiple ones, you'll need to click on it, change it, and then export that as well. It's not going to just export all of these. So, all right, so that really is just getting your collection count. And again, this was just for items. So if you do put all of your electronic resources into Sierra, and you want to grab those counts, you would want to go back into Sierra, or into Create Lists, I'm sorry, and redo this, but instead of saving it as items, save it as bib records. And then you can rerun those and look at your location codes, and you can get that information. So Katie's asking, will checkouts be July through June? So the year-to-date checkouts within item records in Sierra are July to June. So previous years will be the previous year's July to June, and then this current year will be from last July to right now. That's because I actually changed those numbers over at the end of June. So I'll actually be doing it at the end of the week for this fiscal year. So I'll clear out all of those year-to-dates on July 1. I'll move those year-to-date numbers into the previous year-to-date. But that's a really great question, Katie, because in other places in web management reports, that's not the case. I've requested Innovative to change that for us, but they don't do that. So when you do like year-to-date, it's calendar year. So I'll show you when we get into that. Okay, so since it's I have a lot I want to show you, and it's already 10:20, so I'm not going to rerun the bib records. But again, you could do location equals starts with M or C or whatever it starts with, and then save the type as B for bib, and then rerun that through statistics, and then you can get your information collection stats for your electronic resources, because most people do not add items for their electronic resources. There are some libraries that do, but I don't believe anyone within WISPALS does, but I could be wrong. So that's collection counts. Now, the other thing that you would need to do for iPads is to actually go in and do use stats. So that's circulation stats. So what I wanted to show you, as I mentioned there, when we looked at the ILS resources page, there are two different versions of web management reports, and under the reports here, you can link to both of them, circulation activity reports and web management reports. If you click on circulation activity reports, that takes you to the web management app. If you click on web management reports, that will take you to the old version. Some of you, depending upon how your libraries are set up, and your networks are set up, I do know that a couple of you can't access the old version of web management reports from here, because it is, like I said, it's Java based, and not all browsers will allow you to use Java anymore. So some libraries have found that you can, if you click on the web management link in here, or if you copy, sorry, let me find that. If you just copy this and then you open it with an older browser or like Internet Explorer, I think Microsoft Edge allows you to use that. You can do it that way. But I've already got them open, so I want to show you the differences between them. Okay, so Web Management Reports app, I believe this is the one that most people use. Like I said, it's not Java based anymore, and so it's easier to navigate. And the really nice thing about this is that when once you run a report, it automatically just throws it in Excel for you to download. And so that's really handy. The other version does not do that. You have to actually, it'll give it to you and you could print it off, or you can download it into Excel. So I'll show you those differences quickly. So within Web Management Reports, if you've never been in here, this is really how we can get use statistics for lots of different things, items, based on items, item types, all the different fields in items, also patrons and so forth. You do need to use your Sierra credentials to access this. So once you get in here and click on any one of these reports, it will ask you to log in. So if you log in and it tells you you're not allowed, let me know, or let the person at your library know who authorizes permissions, and they just need to give your Sierra credentials permission to access these reports. Okay, so like I said, there's quite a few different reports within Web Management Reports. So there's the circulation activity, there's circulation crosstabs, which I'll get into and show you the difference between that and like the checkouts. The one that I want to focus on right now, just because it's part of the iPads. And like I said, so once you click on something, it's going to ask you to log in. So we need to look at checkouts. So this is where we want to look at yesterday, or the dates. So this kind of relates to the question that Katie had asked, will the checkouts be July through June? So if we're looking at year to date, when we think year to date, as far as academic year, we think, July to June. That is not the case for these reports. Year to date is going to be calendar year. So it's going to, if you select year to date, it's just going to give you January to today. So keep that in mind. The best bet for running reports, and if you're not just looking at like yesterday's circulation or something like that, or month to date or last month, use user specified. That's going to give you the option to select specific dates. So you could do a 2-year period if you wanted, or we could do our fiscal year, which of course is, so the current one, since it's almost over, is July 2018 through June. Not quite done with June, but that's okay. So the other thing is we don't want all locations, because remember, when you're going into this, you're a part of a consortium. So if you do select all locations, that doesn't mean all of your like location codes. It means all like library locations. So we want to select one only because we want to specifically look at one library. So let's grab Fox Valley for an example. So now that we have an option of what do we want the report to show it? Do we want to show it by patrons? Do we want to know how many students or how many checkouts were by students or faculty or staff, so forth? Do we want to look at item types? So since we're talking about the iPads reports, and again, depending upon how you catalog, you might want the report by item type, or you might want it by location code. It kind of depends on how you use those internally. I think I'm going to do iType for Fox Valley. So I'm going to click submit, and then it's going to automatically pop up, and once it's done compiling, and it's going to tell me I have something that I can open or download in Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And my computer's being just a little slow. One thing I wanted to show you really quickly. So I opened it up, and I have nothing here. It's all zeros. And so Microsoft Excel wants just to make sure that you're not opening or downloading anything that contains viruses, and that you want to, but you just basically have to say, yeah, this is okay. I want to be able to edit this information. So just if your computer is set up like this, you may have to hit enable editing. Once you do that, then that information will download and show. Okay, so this then gives me all of the period from July 2018 to June, and it shows me the number. So this quantity is number of checkouts based on like DVD. So I had this number of DVD checkouts, this number of books checked out, and so forth. Now, as far as the reserves go, this isn't giving me like the type of reserve it is, so maybe I need to also run that report by location code, if that matters. The other thing is you can then take this and compare it to your collection accounts to get like turnover rate. So I know if I had 1,972 checkouts for DVDs, how many DVDs do I actually have? Well, I have 30 DVDs, or I have 3,000 DVDs, or so forth. We're going to jump over to Decision Center in a second, and there's a report that does all of that together, and I can show you that as well. But I wanted to quickly show you the difference between this one and the other web management reports. So they, like I had mentioned before, they basically have the same reports, but this one has a little bit more. There's access to a couple more things in here that you can't do in the app. So here, this is the same thing that we just did, only you have to select a little bit more. So that's another reason why the other one's better. It's a little bit more intuitive. You have to click a lot more here, but just to show you what it looks like in case you haven't seen it before, I'm selecting checkout. Again, I'm going to do user specified. I'm going to select one only, and then I'm going to do iType again. So I'm going to run the exact same report, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. So for this, instead of selecting the kind of drop down, I just select two. Actually, I'll do current. I'm going to do from July of 2018 through current. I'm going to submit the query. I need to select now the location, and remember in the other one you would select like user specified, and then it would show you the dates. You'd select one only, and then it would immediately show. Here you have to actually hit submit first, and then it has you select those options. So now you get basically this is the same information that this is, but it's not in a nice little spreadsheet. You can download this into Excel, and you can also convert it into a couple of different options as well. I just wanted to show you that really quickly so you saw the difference. So again, the Web Management Report app is a little bit more friendly in that it just immediately puts it into Excel for you, and it will give you raw data too. I don't know if you guys noticed that. So down at the bottom, it shows you the circulation stats, or it gives you the table, excuse me, then it also throws it in a chart for you. and it gives you the raw data. So if you did want to just copy and paste it into something else to do some like ongoing stats, you can do that as well. You do get that option here, but you have to download them all separately. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to come back to web management reports later, but I wanted to touch on a couple other things and options that we have. So let's see here. I don't have Decision Center open, so I'm going to just open that quickly. So again, Decision Center it's separate from Sierra. You do have to use your Sierra credentials to log in. I'm using an older version of Firefox. So typically when you do go to Decision Center, yours will look a little bit different. There'll actually be some graphics here. Mine is just showing words. So if yours looks different, it's the same as yours. It's just being my browser's being a little restrictive. All right, so I wanted to show you within Decision Center, it's actually pretty powerful, but there are some restrictions within Decision Center. We actually have a couple of tickets open within Decision Center because some of the locations that we have that it gives you as an option to, not location codes, but some of the like use statistics for web, like the IP addresses, the ranges aren't accurate, and we're having issues with that. So that's an example of one of the tickets we have open. But there are a lot of really powerful tools that you can use in Decision Center for like weeding and just collection evaluation. One thing, actually, I should just jump back really quickly because we were talking about iPads. So library expenditures, I think I mentioned a little bit about price within item, but I believe that the majority of WISPALS libraries do not put all of their expenditures in Sierra. Not everybody uses fund codes and so forth. So I'm not going to take time today to go through how to pull those numbers. Because I'm not sure that any of the libraries fully use Sierra for that. So I don't think it would be beneficial for our time today. However, if you do, you can get that information out of Sierra in the funds. We can pull, it's really easy in the chart. The funds chart, the library expenditures are there. You can get them by the different funds that you have in there. But like I mentioned, I didn't want to go too much into it today since I don't think anybody fully uses Sierra for that purpose. So most of you get your expenditure numbers for iPads from other places within your institution. Okay, so I wanted to jump over now to Decision Center and talk a little bit about just collection, maintenance, and weeding. So there are quite a few different options within Decision Center. We have 4 main sections. We have this kind of development, evaluation, balancing, and maintenance. The development section, well, actually, I can just click on them really quick. You can just click on them, and the nice thing is with Decision Center, if you're not sure what these reports mean, you can hover over them, and it'll give you an example, or it explains what those different reports will do. And you can always just click up here, and it'll take you back to the main page. The thing that I wanted to focus on today was looking at some of the evaluation tools, because that's one where we have a lot of different options. So it breaks it down into different areas. So we have acquisition. So again, this would also be a place where you can get expenditure information, but you have to have it all in Sierra in order to be able to run those reports. So you have circulation options, collection options, and then even encore options. And this is where one of those open tickets that we have that I mentioned with encore and searches, if you do some of those searches, some of those IP ranges are funky. I don't believe anybody is doing any of those searches, but or any of those reports on searches, but I do want to just let you know they might look funny and not be accurate. Okay, so the one thing I wanted to look at today was collection, because I got some question about some weeding options, and this is the evaluation and collection is a good place to look. And I had mentioned turnover report before, and we can actually do a turnover report here. So we can actually go in and do a turnover report. Let's do it. You have different options. You can do it by different like location and an item type, material type, by shelf location and so forth. I'm going to just select material type, and then here is where I can actually select the specific location, because again, Decision Center looks at everything that's in Sierra, so it's looking at all of WISPALS, not just your specific institution. We'll pick on CVTC. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. This always pops up and says this could take several minutes. It usually doesn't, but it could, depending upon how much of information it's looking at. I said that, and now it is taking a while. Okay, so what this shows us is because I selected material type, you're going to see material type over here. If I would have selected item type or location, it would show us that. And so it's lumping all of the material types together for CVTC, and it breaks it down by month. So you can see the turnover rate for these different materials. Now, I think with academic libraries, turnover rate is not something that you tend to really look at. Turnover rate really is, it shows you usage of your collection as a whole. So how well does, our audiobooks circulate? If it's a, like a 1-to-1, that means like every single item gets checked out essentially, or on average. So looking at these statistics, you can see like for textbooks, for an example, it went from May being 0.182 down to June being 0.29, which makes sense. Textbooks, it's summer. I don't think, even for some of the libraries that have the 3 terms, I'm not sure that, there's even classes right now, so that would make sense. But it just kind of shows you the overall usage for material type and turnover rate based upon month. And then it jumps to fiscal year. It says fiscal year 2018, fiscal year 2017, and so forth. But again, back to that question that Katie had asked before, it's not our fiscal year, it's actually calendar year. So it'll be calendar year 2018, calendar year 2017, and so forth. So that's just an example of one of the things that Decision Center does, which is nice because, as I mentioned before, if you were trying to figure out your turnover rate, you would have to look at your collection count compared to your usage and do the math yourself or throw them into Excel. Decision Center does that for you, and you have different options to select material type, item type, and so forth. One of the other things that I think some of you have looked at before, and it's actually under maintenance. I wanted to look at the age of collection, and this maintenance section is a good option for weeding. There are a lot of things that you can run for weeding. You can even do create list reports and then put it in Excel and sort by like publication date or circulation, that sort of thing, to do weeding. But you can also come over here and do age of collection weeding reports. You have quite a few things that you will need to select to get it down to the specific section that you want to look at, or if you're looking at your entire collection. I'll run a report really quickly so we can take a look. Let's stick with CVTC. Physical format, you can select all of them, or if you want to look, typically what is the most helpful is if you do it by sections. So you have, if you're looking at just your print materials and then a specific call number range, or if you're looking at, like, let's select audio. And then the collection, again, you'll want to select who it's for. So I want to do CVTC. And then for the call number range, you can, people have run into issues here using call numbers. If you select a specific range, but your call number doesn't fall in between it, even though it feels like it should, or maybe it's not cataloged correctly, you could have issues. So what I recommend is just putting all of them over there. And then for years since publication date, this will really determine how big this file is. I'm just going to say, actually, maybe I will leave it at 10 years and see what happens. Okay, so this is only showing us 14 entries, which isn't too surprising because I did say 10 years. If I just said like 2 years or 1 year, it would be a lot larger. But this is giving me a report of all of the CVTC audiobooks that have a publication date of at least 10 years, so you can see right here. But then it also gives me some circulation information, including last checkout, last check-in, so forth, and then even the item status as well. So this can be used to read if, you know, we're looking at maybe medical books or something like that. If the publication date was super old and it's still circing, that might be problematic, right? So we need to pull that. You can also change different things over here. So if you don't want to include, if you're actually looking at a very large section, you don't want to include the last copy because you have to have a last copy of a section you're looking at, you can select that as an option and it would not include it. So, all right, so back to, I just wanted to go back into here really quickly. So again, with the maintenance, you can do, there's so many different options. As I mentioned before, like with low circulation, high circulation, I think for academic purposes, that's probably one that doesn't need to get or doesn't get used a lot. Is it's basically a report that would show you this is a really high circulating material. Maybe you need another copy, or you should take a look at it because its use will, you know, its use is falling apart essentially. Okay, so Katie's saying, will we ever be able to use Dewey for call number range and decision center? So our call number ranges actually include both Dewey and LC. I just had another question recently. I think it was from NTC last week about it. And I did look into it and they're all in there. So I think I'm wondering if we need to do an update to, or actually look at records to make sure that for the call number, make sure that they're cataloged with maybe the right mark field. I'm wondering if that's why they're not getting picked up. So I'm still looking into that, Katie, but maybe if you could give me some example records, some actual records of just any of your items that aren't, because I think some are showing in the reports and some aren't. Do you know if that's correct? Or are they all not showing for your Deweys?
Melody, I believe that when I was using Decision Center, I was not seeing the Dewey numbers underneath that list of call numbers. So it was more that they weren't there to pick from in the first place. Like, let's say we would, you know, specifically look at the medical section, you know, it'd be ideal to pick those Dewey call numbers, but I just wasn't seeing that in Decision Center as one of those drop-down options.
Okay,
maybe that's my bad somehow.
No, well, you know what? The other thing too is that Decision Center gets updated quite a bit, and so it could be that the last time you ran it, maybe that wasn't an option, but I don't think that's the case. So these, you can see they're just listed in alphabetical order, but it's actually a combination of both. Let's see here. Actually, I'm just seeing LC. So it has things, I think it shows Yeah, let me look into that a little bit more. I think Linda was the one who had sent me some information on that, and I was looking into it, and I did double check in our SCAT table, which pulls a lot of the call number, which has those ranges. It's actually very expensive, and it includes the full LC range and the Dewey range. So that's set up correctly on that end. That's why I'm thinking that maybe there's an issue. It could be with Decision Center, but it also may be with the way we have things cataloged, which would be an easy fix. We could just update records. So I'm just going to make a quick note.
Melody, I put Dewey catalog numbers in the 092 field, if that's helpful.
092. That is helpful. Thank you, Linda.
Sure.
All right. Okay, so we only have 15 minutes left, and I had so much I wanted to show you. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and let's jump back into Sierra. One of the things that I had, I get questions about as far as like evaluation is on like different ways to do title lists. So let me show you really quickly. We probably don't need a huge one. Let's just go here. So, oh, actually, I think I might use this list that somebody created in May. So let's just take a look at this really quickly. The one thing I've always loved about Create Lists, I think everyone's aware of it, but I wanted to point out, if you come across a list and you're like, oh, that sounds interesting, I wonder what they did to create that, you can click on the list and then click Show Info, and it will tell you how they created it. So this particular list is showing that they use a specific item location to gather information, and then they sorted it by item volume. So what I want to do is I want to create a list of periodicals, so very similar to what they have here, but I want to save them not as item types, I want to save them as bib records, and I'm going to show you how or why in a second. So I'm basically going to recreate what they did, but I'm going to keep it as a bibliographic record, and I'm just going to select, let's see here. I think what I'll do is I'll limit it to MSTC by just saying the bib location. Let's see here. I do this a lot, like I'll sort through and I'll see, so, well, I think what I'll do is not equals to, but I'll just do a starts with. And then I'll also do a material type, because I want to get just the periodicals. So I'm going to say the material type is equal to, let's just say magazines. And we'll run this list. And some of you maybe have, maybe catalog them a little bit differently. And so this should work for the majority of you. But what I did was I just grabbed bib records of magazines. So now I also want to just sort this quick. And I'm going to sort it by title, just so that they're in alphabetical order, and I'll show you why in a second. So this sorts, I don't know what it is with Sierra, but the sorting can take a long time if you are sorting something big, so keep that in mind. Now the other thing I wanted to show you when you're sorting within Create Lists, when you sort something by a specific field, the number, the amount could change. And the reason is that it's going to give you duplicates. So what you want to do to take it back down to so there aren't any duplicates, you can just go ahead and click on it to view it, and then you can dedupe it, or you can dedupe it if you wanted to see, like consumer reports is listed 3 times. And it may, okay, so those actually have the different bib records, but some of them will, here's an example. Entrepreneur, it's listed twice, even though it's the same bib record. You can hit dedupe here and it will actually remove those. And then when that's done, I'm going to close out. You can actually dedupe up here as well. So we're back to 103. So the one thing that I wanted to show you in the old version of web management reports, you have an option to do a title report. So this is in, if we start from here, it's in the circulation activity, and you click on title and then hit submit. It's going to give you all of the options to select from create lists. Or if you just ran this previously, it's just gonna, you'll have to I'll show you in just a second when it's done thinking. You can see up here with Firefox, I have a little ball that's thinking. Okay, so here it's showing me all of these right here are actually all of the create list lists. So I need to scroll down and find my MSTC periodicals. There's 103 of them. I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to hit submit query. And the cool thing about this is this is handy because it doesn't just show you the amount of, like with the create list, I'd have to actually go into everyone to see how many copies or how many volumes I have, how they circulated, and so forth. With this report, I get the title, but it tells me, like for advertising age, I actually have 118 items attached to that title, and they've circulated 10 times this year. Once there's a total 37 checkouts, and so forth. So this gives you an idea of how well your items have circulated based on the title, not the specific volume or copy. And so for something like a periodical, that's really important information, right? You want to know overall how well a title circulates, whether you should renew it, and so forth. And this also, MSTC probably doesn't, it looks like they don't use any one of these, but there are internal use, which, so if a magazine is just used inside the library and then put down, staff will pick it up and scan it for internal use and keep internal use counts, so you can get that information as well. But not all libraries do that. But this is a really good report that you can take a look at just to see how overall a title, not specific copies, but a title is being used in-house. And again, this is the old version, so then you can download it into Excel if you want. Okay, let's see here. It is almost 10 o'clock. I didn't get into everything, but I'm wondering if there are specific questions or specific reports that people had, or just questions about how to use some of the resources that we have that we could answer, since we only have a couple minutes left. Does anyone have a report they're wondering how to do? Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, Katie. Katie was saying be interested in a session too. As we were moving through these, I was like, this is actually, it takes a while to go through all of these, so 1 hour is not enough. So maybe we do need to do, that way we could get a little bit more advanced as well. You know, since we have a minute and nobody seems to have some questions, I did want to show you a couple of things in Create Lists that might be helpful in trying to find like weeding type things. So if I'm looking for, I want to look at kind of like age, and I want to look specifically at publication date of some materials that I have. You can, so let's just see here. I'm just going to pick on somebody. I'll do CVTC because they're just right at the top. So when looking at items, you can actually do, so again, I need to limit to CVTC, so I'm just going to say that the item agency equals to them, just so I know I'm getting something that they own. And then what I want to do is I want to look at a specific, maybe I want to look at a call number range. And so I don't know off the top of my head, I can't remember if they use LC or Dewey. But at this point, you could do item call number and then you could do a range. I think what I'm going to do is just say a location, because what I wanted to show you is not necessarily what you can do with create lists, but when you gather information to export it into Excel, that's where you have a lot of power over information. So let's see. Let's just do, we'll just pick on their main collection. So, and since I did this, I actually don't need this first line here. I'm going to just go ahead and delete it because I limited specifically by location. But I just wanted to show you guys really quickly, like I said, since we had a couple of minutes. So it can be really powerful to actually export information into Excel, and that's where you have a lot of control over the type of information you pull out. So by exporting, and some of these, let's see here, I don't think I have because I wasn't planning on doing this, I don't have a saved export. But what, for example, like let's say CVTC wants to look at all of their materials, but they also really want to focus on like the publication date. So they want to grab if this were multiple locations, I would include location, but maybe they just want the title, maybe the author, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say bibliographic, but I'm going to say a specific mark tag. And this is the thing I wanted to show you. So if you're actually trying to pull out information that's really like deep in your mark fields within your bib record, and you just want information specifically in a mark field, like a publication date, which is typically, oh, I haven't done this in a while. I might need some help. It's 260 subfield C, but it also could be 260 subfield, or 264 now subfield C. So I'm actually going to do both of them. So I'm going to append another line and do bib mark record, and then 264 subfield C. And so I have that information. And then if it's a weeding report, maybe you wanted to do circulation as well, you could add that. The other thing is I always change the field, the limiter, I always put a pipe in there because a comma can easily be found in a title and so forth. So I'm going to just say that. I'm going to select my desktop. Okay. And I'm just going to name this CVTC. Okay. So I just want to show you this quickly. It's going to export it. And as soon as it's done, I'm going to open it up real quick because we have one more minute. And I just wanted to show you what that looks like when you do actually grab a specific mark tag field. Because like I said, it could be really helpful when you're trying to just create very specific information. Okay, let's see. So that I'm going to ask, oh boy, just one second. Sorry about that. Okay, my computer is thinking. All right, so I don't know if any of you have played around with exporting from into Excel, but what because we had that delimiter, we also then will have to put it into columns. So what you do, and I do have detailed instructions on how to do all of this within Excel if you're not familiar with the whole delimiter and like, what do I do with this? It looks, it's not readable. You actually go to data, text to columns, and I have all of this information saved on Basecamp if you're like, what in the world? How do I deal with this? I put a specific pipe delimiter in there, and now it's all in columns. So just really quickly, you can see, okay, so the good news is they're all in 260C. They're not in 64. You can make it a little bit easier. So now I have isolated specific dates so I could sort that, and I can actually look at dates and not that whole publication field, because if you look at the publication field, like the full 260, it's going to have the publication house and all this other information, but really what I want to know is that date. So by using, by gathering that information within Create List and then exporting specific marked fields, I'm able to limit to specific things. So you can do that with other, you know, not just the pub date, you can do it with other things as well. And you can really isolate information. And then if I'm looking at a specific call number range, like I said, you can do that within Create List and then export it with the pub date. If I'm looking at medical information and I want to look at the pub date, I can isolate just that and sort it in Excel by the pub date. And I know, oh my gosh, I've got this big chunk of really old publication medical materials that I need to get rid of, or we need to look into purchasing new. So, okay, so that again was just really quickly another example. So we are over time. It's 11:02 already. I hope that there was something that you learned today, something new. But if you have any questions, and I do think I might need to look into doing like an additional, because we didn't get through everything that we have available to us, so I might do another session, or I might record something else if anyone's interested in looking at going a little bit further into reports and statistics. So if you have any questions as you're playing around or running into reports, or if you have very specific report needs, please let me know and I can try to help you figure out how to do that. The one thing about Sierra is we actually have a lot of different ways to sometimes do to get to that one report. So there might be different ways we can do things. So, all right, well, let me know if you have questions. I did record this, so I'll post it on Basecamp. And thank you, everyone, for joining me today. I hope you have a good rest of your day and good week. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Melody?
Yes.
We also have a 099 field, mark field for children's fiction.
For your call number. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the 099, the 092. Perfect. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you. Sure.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much, Melody.
Bye-bye.